Hello, this is Max Strike. I want to talk about this Honeycode, and at this point, I want to do just starting a basic app, not necessarily getting. Well, no, I get a functional one, and then I just want to do an overview of the app at the moment. So we're just going to go to My Drive and create a workbook. Now you can create a workbook, and it's got this import CSV file. So presumably that imports a table, and once it's created a table, you've got a table of data to work from, and then you'd almost like be starting from scratch. You can use a template, and they've got templates through here. Now I did do this template one. Now I was trying to do a timesheet one, and here you can see the timesheet one here. Now what I started off with was a time off reporting app that I just took a copy from the template through there. And the reason I took that one because it had something about putting in dates, and I want to put in time, but I will also have to put in dates for the timesheet. And also it has an identification with the user who's putting in that information. And then there was an overview app, which this one's called Time Off Manager, that is able to see all of the people who put the things in. So that the time off one is the one for each person who puts it in, and they'll only see their own data, so it's filtered to only show their information. And then there's a time off manager that can see all of them, or it actually has a request through there. So it's that overview. So one is filtered, one isn't. So I thought, well, that's a good place to start. So what you can actually do in there is you just right click on that one and you duplicate. So I ended up with the timesheet reporting copy one, and then I went into that and started to do things. Now the first thing I went into that was I went into tables, and I made a new table and I called it timesheet, and then I started to do another one called projects, because I thought, well, if I'm making a timesheet, I'm going to be working on projects, so what's the list of the projects I've got at the moment, etc., etc. So that was a procedure that I was just working on through there. So that's one method of actually doing it. So you come through, you create a workbook, you use a template, so you just copy the template, and then you make a copy of that template and go and Mogador it. And then once I actually ended up with the copy of that one there, the timesheet reporting copy, I just deleted the app faces of the things on the time off and only kept the ones to do with the timesheet. So that's how I ended up with where I'm at the moment. It's still not working, but it's proceeding. Then I suddenly thought I'd do a start from scratch. So let's just do a start from scratch one, and I'll just go and hit start from scratch, because this is interesting. It does a couple of interesting things. So the first thing it does is it opens it up and lets you into there. Now it's just called Untitled, so you've got to go back to the beginning, right click on the text there and rename it, and we're just going to go test app 1. It's got that. Let's try again. Test app 1. Update. So that's where you've got to go through to edit the name of the app up at that level. The next one is a table. You can't edit anything in here. You've got to go into the table and rename the table here. So we're just going to call this, if I try putting a number in there, it doesn't like it at all. It gets naffy. It actually says you can start with an underscore or you can start with a letter. So I'm just going to put T1 and what? Rename T1. Sorry, that name can't be a cell reference. Table. Tab 1, we call it. No, doesn't like that one either. Tab. It lets you do that. And then another blank table. Now that's an interesting thing as well with that table there, is that you can also import your CSV data here. So if you have a whole load of data like what your projects are, you can import it through there. Now, I haven't started to play with that import CSV file, but most probably if you had one called projects, you could most probably call it, and we'll just call this rename, and we just call it tab X. Through there. Now, when it starts off these things, it actually creates 3 columns and 3 blank rows as well. So just be aware of that when we first start off. So we're going to go through in the next part here, and we're going to make an app. So we go, yes, please, we'll have a new, we use the wizard on here because this is where I want to start. Now, there is a little video on here which I haven't watched, but anyway, the first thing is, what are we linking this app to? So you've got to choose a table because we've got 2 tables on here. So we're just going to use the tab one through there. So at the moment, we got the column headers that are just called whatever they're called. Now, so we got the source tab, and then it says I've got columns. So I've got the data in here. So if I only wanted to work with 2 columns worth of stuff, I could just delete one of the columns through there. Or I could change the, well, no, I can't actually. Can I? Let's just see if I can do something through here. Okay, I've moved the column arrangements around through here. Now, watch this, because this is actually quite interesting. So we just go into the next one here. So it's given that one then, it's shown a screen of information. Now it shows you another screen of information. Now I'm going to move this around as well. So I've got column 1 and column 2 like that. And then if I go next again, it creates another thing through there. And I'm just going to do the same there, just for the hell of it. So I'm now going to apply, and then it says view your app. So we go, yeah, let's view the app. So this is the app view. So it comes through, and it's just got that. It's got those column headers that I moved around. Now you see the arrangements of what they are through here. Now I'm just going to add some information. So it's taken me to this other tab, but there's only one tab there, and I'm just going to put some information into all of these and just done. And then you see it adds that information there. I'm going to add another row of information, and I'm just going to go through there and go done there, and then it does that. Now I want to edit that. Now all it does is it bounces me to this one that I can't do anything with it. I can just choose the different rows, and I can delete the row through here, and that's all I'm given. Again, if I click on that, it just takes me back to the first field again. So I found that a little bit confusing when it built the app, but that's just the automated app that actually just lets you input data in. So it's actually saying, I've got a spreadsheet at the back, and this is tab 2, so we actually want to go back to tab. And you see I've now inputted data. Now, because there were 3 blanks there at the beginning, we got to blow those away because we don't want that blank data. So we just blow that away, and there's that information in there. So if we just come back to our tab through there, you'll see if we now refresh that, those 3 clear lines will disappear. So it'll actually just show that. So we're viewing the app in that. Now another way is when we actually come into the app builder, let's go to our actual tab and our app there. You will see I've got 3 screens. I've got the delete screen. I've got the adding information in screen that we see. But all we show in our app is just that first one there. The reason why is we actually haven't added the app navigation. Now it actually says in showing navigation only the first tab. So we're only showing the first tab. So we're going to give him a shield just for the fun. And so if we drag these up, it will now make those other fields visible. Now, one thing I just want to point out here, if we hit that button, it doesn't automation navigate to the new screen, tab form. So what it does, if you hit that, it takes you to the input form. So it's created 3 forms really. So let's just go back to our app again. Now you see I've got the 3 tabs up the top because I've made them visible. So I've got my main one here, which is basically the summary app. It's saying that, and it's got the column names across the top. Now it's fine if you've got the column names there, we can rename those anytime. And if I add one, what that does is it takes me across to that form there. So we don't need to do that. We can actually just go across to there, and we can add some more stuff, add some more data through there. And if we go done, it takes us, oh, now it's gone naffy on me. See what happens there. Me hitting too many keys in the keyboard. We'll go back to him and we'll go view app. Now, an interesting thing, when you do the view app through here, if I come back to there and do view app, it opens another tab again. So I've got all of these other ones open. So the best thing to do is leave the original one and just refresh it. I find that's a demo. So let's just go and add. So that's taken us through the tab form. Now what I just want to point out there is if we just go back to that, I've got the tab form there, but that takes us to the tab form and back. So I can actually, if I'm short of real estate down here, so I've got 2 or 3 or 5 pages that I want, you can actually get to it and get back from it via this other way here. So if we actually just go to the last one here, when we press the done button, now if I just click on there, you'll see the action is another automation, which is this little fella over here, the automation, and it says add this information in here, add row to the tab, so that's the tab table, add a row to the tab table with the data in those columns there, and then navigate to the previous screen. So it goes back to the original home screen again. So that's what it's doing when you start hitting those buttons through there. And this is just displaying things. Now this looks not very pretty, so we can actually just go into that table and we can actually say, well, actually while we're doing this, we actually want to call this as name. And even if I can spell right, name, I hate this. And email, say, email, and let's say age, just for the hell of it. Now, here's another interesting. I can grab this and drag it across, right? So I've moved those cell arrangements around. But if I go back to my app, you'll see they're in their original arrangements. Because I had, remember, when we were doing the actual app, when I set up those things, I moved the cell arrangements around and I said, make cell, the first cell, column 1, and I moved column 1 and column 2 arranged. So that's why they're reading wrong. But even when I move them over here, they're not changing app. So when I move them on the table, they don't change their arrangements. They've still got the original arrangements through there. So just be aware that you can actually do those manipulations before and after when you're doing your apps. And sometimes when you're building your apps at the beginning, it's best to do that messing around first, and then you've actually got it. So putting your naming conventions in because you know what you're doing. Now, if you ended up with 50 rows of data, having the search button in there might be a better way of doing it than trying to scroll up to find something. If not, you can just turn it off so it doesn't come through like that. The other thing is inside the data cells. Now, inside here, you see that's got a list. So if we go into the object, that's got a list somewhere, wherever it is. It's got a thing called a list. And inside the list, it's got a content box. And inside the content box, it's got a data cell. And that data cell has a name. Now, because that first one's called email, we can actually call that one email. And then the next one here, we can actually call that, instead of data cell 4, we can actually call that name. And the third one there, we can, instead of calling that that data cell 6, we can actually call that age. So, but that only works, now that renaming of those variables only works on that tab. So if I go to a different tab, this one here, you'll see if I click on that, that's called data cell 5. That's called data cell 3, and that's called data cell 7. So who knows why that. And then if I go on to the third tab, that's called column 2, that's called column 1, and that's called column 3, because that's what they were named when this app was built. But you can go and change those variables later on. So just be aware of that. So that's something that happens. Now, because I've named them these things here, any of the actions that happen only relate to this whatever activity you actually have on this screen on your thing, not on the other ones or your tabs and such. So just be aware of that as well. So coming back to that particular one, I wanted to, let's just go back and 3-hour display there. Now this is the other thing about it. Now we've generated a few rows of data. Think about it and hurry up. And we just go back to tab and we've generated that row of data. If I try clicking on it, it just takes me across to this one here. I can choose a specific row and delete that row. If I go and click on that row there, if I try and edit in there, I can't do any editing. If I come into here, there's no value here, but let's just go X, Y, and be creative, Z. So we've created another way. Now it's taking me back to that one. Because that says take me back to the previous screen, and that was a previous screen. Now if I'm over here and I go add and I go A, I'll let you guess the rest, and go done, it'll take me back for the first tab, because that action for the done one was to go back to the previous screen. So that's where those are. But I can't edit them. As soon as I click on that, it just takes me to this one, and the only option there I've got to do is delete them. So that's a bit frustrating. So let's just go back into our app again there. Now, if I select that one there, I can go make editable. I can go make editable, and I can go make editable. So when I'm now on that screen there, whoops, I've got to refresh that. You'll now find that I can now edit those. So now I can go blurgle and go into there and just delete those and do that. But when I come into this one here and we go and select ourselves a row, we can't do anything on this still. But if I go back into my app again and I go and select the second one, I can, if I click on that one, I can now make those editable. So I can then go and edit when I'm on that screen. And in some ways you can actually say, I could put that delete button on the other one and sort of, you could build the app, because this is an automated app the way it is at the moment. If I just come back to there, you can actually have your rows of data there, and you can have a button at the end, which was just a delete button. So you could actually do it that way, because you can also edit it straight away inside there. But then again, how do you explain that? So in some ways, this is one of the things I want to explore when I start building an app, is to have a help tab so that you can actually explain how your app works, which is a convenient thing to do. So that's as we've got it at the moment. So just be aware of that. So again, if I'm in the tab form, well, it's actually blank, so you can't do anything through there. And the cancel, if I do a cancel, it just takes me back to the previous tab again. So that's the actual app itself. Now I just want to drop in. So that's the one that's built from scratch. The thing that surprised me when I did that is when I was inside here, is it automatically created these 3 different tabs for me. And it had the one background sheet, and as I said, you've got to go into here to actually go and edit and stuff like that. Oh, actually that's a good one. Sorry, I just noticed another useful thing, opening a new tab, which might be a nice thing to do, because one of the things as well that is quite useful is that you can see the data through here. That's quite useful to actually see what you've got in there and stuff. So sometimes while you're actually doing something at the top here, it can be a bit of a nuisance, since you've got to scroll down to the bottom of the thing to actually hide it again. But it is a nice part. I still haven't found a way of actually associating these things too. So you see how those things work as far as that messiness goes. So that's just a simple, and all that's doing is just allowing you to input stuff. Now, another thing that I found out about this, I've got a separate tab which has got that, is the information with a tab. Now, when you're actually making a create a workbook, you can import CSV file. Now, what about exporting? Well, you can't. You're mogadord. The only way of exporting data is to select it in here, copy, and go into something like an Excel spreadsheet, and Control-V. Paste it. So at the moment they actually haven't got through, and this is something that I want to talk about later, is the potentiality of this app and where it is at this point in time, because it is in its infancy at this point. So that's one of the things that doing. Now I just want to jump into my Timesheet app of where I am. Now one of the things that it says is, when my Timesheet app, if we go into here, you want to come down and you want to select which project you're working on. So you want to make sure that when you're actually in the app itself, so I'm going to go into this one here at this point in time, that I'm putting the right, I can put my start date. So if I just go and view this app at this point in time, it allows a few little button boxes which are quite good. And I haven't got this working now. So the project, I can come down and I can select a certain project that comes through. It's still showing something weird through here. I can use a date box and select a date time. I can come through here and select a start time. I don't like this. It's a bit I just want to put 7 or something in there. And here I've got that as a number, so I can put that in as 10, let's say 10-hour lunch. Yeah, that's about right. And then there's a PM time that I put through there. And then I haven't got the submit button working through here at this point in time now. But anyway, let's just bang through there. And you see I've only got the one tab as well. So I've got date values and things like that I'm trying to push into my timesheet. But I also want this picker. Oh, it's actually brought something new in there. No information, you note, but it's created an extra line. I think that's a submit button because, as I said, it hasn't worked. What it says for here is that you can create a link between two sheets. Tables. So you make a table called projects that has A, B, C, or you can be, so-and-so, and it's got a project code, and it's got a project card, and things like that. Now, every time a project is actually used on that other sheet, because it's associated these cells, or this sheet, or this table, whatever the naming bloody convention is, with this one here, every time this is used, like if I now use B again, just as an example, and we go back to the projects one, you'll see my filter has got 3 here. So this is the way it can use the filter in the app to say, only show me anything filtered by B. So if I said show only, so that means if I was logging in as me, so we'll just go back to the Timesheet app, and this is what I'm trying to build at the moment, is that inside here, I've got to go to the app itself. No, that's not that. I've got to go to here, to the timesheet. If you hear this, it says, hi Max. This was something that I found. And it's using the system user variable, and it's giving the first name, my first name. So it's using this bit of code. So that's when I logged in on my app, it's found my information. So it's displaying that. So that's what I wanted to display onto my table, so that automatically I can now filter by only Max. So that's a way of actually just getting that data. So this, when I've got my apps through here, the manager can see everybody's timesheets, but I can only see the ones related to me. So that's all that show up on my particular app. At the moment, I've got it, this is filtering this table. So this name here might be a further name. If I go back into the tables where there's one called people, and here's all of the people who are on this one here who are using. So I should be associating that one, or it should automatically associate that with that table or do something through there. So I've yet to get that link coming quite right. So coming into the timesheet, there's a couple of coming into the timesheet bugger. That's the one. I still haven't got it where I've been able to push this code in. So the other thing that I just want to lay out on that B, if I go through and choose another one, just to get a bit of change through there, but come through here, I can use an automation and say, if that's A, populate another 3 columns with the project code, with the project client, or something like that. So you can put that information through onto the row of data that you've used an automation on there to take that information. I don't know if you can actually use an equals that and then go and link across the sheet. So a lot of the app stuff that I've been playing with so far, it's doing a lot of the functionality here. So you've actually got to be in here to do the actual actions and stuff. So the interface for this seems to be in this side of the things rather than in the spreadsheet side of the things. But inside the spreadsheet side of the things, there's a couple of things that you can do. Now I've got my start time at 3:30 a.m. on this point in time, and I've got my end time, which is 4:48 p.m. So I'm now going to use my total. Now I'm just going to take that out, and this is what the total does. So this is saying total is equal to the end time minus the start time, which is minus 8:45. Now, although this is shown as 16:45, 3:30 a.m. up to 12 is about 9 hours plus another 4, so it shouldn't be reading that. So there's a number in there. Now, this is one of the things. Now, I talk about inside, when I talk about GlideApps, they use Google Sheets, and Google Sheets stores a number as just a single, integer. and this is most probably storing this as an integer somewhere, but I'm not too sure what it is. So you actually have to use a special formula to subtract one number from one time from another time to actually get it right. But I don't know what that formula is, so that's not quite right. But what I've actually had to do is actually just do a multiply by -1 just to get it into the and I've put that wrong, haven't I? Times -1 to actually be able to get it into a positive number that I can then use. And then this is a dilemma again. You see, I've got this information that's come through here. The only way a lot of the time you might actually have a timesheet management, which is doing your billing accounts, you actually want to take this information from here and go and put it into that. So you need to have some connection with outside. And now the only connections that I can see with outside that this actually does, if I come back, into the app builder and I go into something like, I'm going to come back into my other one through here, and I'm going to go into my tab. No, I'm going to go into my tab form one here and look at my done button. You see it's got an automation. Now, the only automation association here, now that automation is just saying do that stuff, but it's actually, you can do another account and you can do a notify, you can update or overwrite. So the only one which actually goes external to the app is really the notify. So I can notify somebody by email, or I can notify people on their app that they've got to change or something's actually happened. So when something happens, notify and do something. But you don't. You want to be able to pull that information out because it's not going to be of much use in there on its own, because you've got to do a lot of manipulation. So maybe you've got to make sure that you've got to link other spreadsheets across, or these across to other ones, and I'm not too sure whether I can do that. And I can go is equal to, you see, it's letting me get to the information in here. But I wonder if I can get, now I can get to the other tab such that now I can actually go in and get a specific name, but then how do I get number 2 or something? So here's where one of the ones could get a little bit difficult as to which one it's actually coming through. So I haven't played with this here as to how some of them work. Why is that going like that? Can I? So I'm not too sure how their spreadsheet works. If you're working in Excel, you know how that works. You know the formulas and you can look all of those up. Where do you look up the formulas for this? Where are they from? So I do find this a little bit confusing. So it needs a little bit of a clarification on there of what their background engine is for their spreadsheet through that. Coming back to this, so at this point in time, I can use filters, I can use associations with other sheets. I want to see if I can actually do some formulas and stuff through there. Another little comment I'd like to make on this particular, in the Timesheet app as well. So one, I'm having problems with a couple of the formulas, and the other thing in that I want to comment about in the Timesheet is it's got the American date. So it goes month, and then it goes day, and then it goes year. Google Sheets does exactly the same. If I just go to one on dates or something like that, it's got it that way round. But what I can do in Google Sheets is to go to Format and go to Number, and then I can go down here and I can go to the date and change it around. Let's change it to that one. But you can change that to a different format so it reads day, month, year. So at the moment, this is great for America where you use that date format, but it's quite annoying in Europe where people aren't used to it, and New Zealand and Australia tend to work on the day, month thing. So that needs to it's a little buggy thing, but at the moment it's on the early days, it's not that important. Now, I just want to stop here at this point in time about the Honeycode app, and I want to compare it to the GlideApp. Now, the GlideApp has been around for about 14 to 16 months, and you actually it's also a no-code app base as well, and it also has a relationship with spreadsheets at the back, and it uses Google Sheets at the back end, and so that gives it an extra bit of power because of the way that it can be treated. Now, it's got inside the app itself, you've got all of these components through here. See, this is a switch up the top here. You've got an image, that it's pulling in. You've got inline list, you've got a button, you've got little things to do and some stuff. And you've got these components that you can drag and drop and put in there. And they're associated with the things. You can do phone numbers, emails, you can bring in images, a map, a video, an audio file, signatures you can make and do and stuff like that. So this is a bit of a more mature app. It's been around for, as I said, about 14 to 16 months. And it started off as a community one. And then slowly a whole load of people started to do a lot of stuff on it. And it slowly evolved into a lot of things. And they've got a pro version now, similar to Honeycode. But it has a lot of features, and two features that I think it would be important in Honeycode is the image, and the image on that is that you can take a picture with your mobile phone and then you upload that image. And I think initially they used a Firebase, and then you ended up linking across. And this is where you can link across to your spreadsheet. So if you click on that, it takes you across into your spreadsheet. And where's it gone? So there's my spreadsheet through there. So, bugger. Now, so there, and then you can do a URL. So all you actually have in here is a URL. So that's that URL of that item there that it pulls up. And I think I've got it linked into my Google Drive, so it's easy and accessible. It's pulling it from the same place. So it makes it quite quick to actually upload. So it's got that aspect of the thing. So inside the sheets, there are things which you can do, and I need to go and find a sheet that will do that sort of thing. In here, this doing a whole load of formulaic things that are actually building up your rows. That if you do things, it's doing a whole lot of query, it's doing a database, it's doing some stuff, and it's displaying information. So it's using sophisticated querying language. So it's not an SQL. Part of this is a little bit SQL in some ways, but it's linking with other sheets. So I can pull data from other sheets and do things as well. So again, this is where Honeycode can actually do that sort of stuff, which is fine as to where we go. But it's also got an extra step on top. And what that extra step is, well, in fact, it's got two extra steps. Within Google Sheets, you're then into the Google Doc environment, so you can get Google Sheets, you can get Google Docs, you can get Google Forms, you can get some of the other things in there, Google Draw and stuff. So you're accessing these other things, and you can automate the linking between them. So that's quite good. And the other one is people have built automations on top of those. So one of the ones that I actually had in here is somebody can come in and do a survey that will actually go in and create a Google Doc form with a report, and it will then email a PDF or email the Word document to both sides of things. Now within Google App, you can now do a signature such that you can make a contract through that. So that's a useful little app to actually have. Again, another thing which you can do with that, within the maps, it will actually find your location. So there's a bit of JavaScript that will actually read your app's Wi-Fi or thing, and it'll actually triangulate where you actually are. So you can actually get location data. So it's not using the sensor on your phone, it's just using your Wi-Fi connection to actually find out where the hell you are. So that's also using phone. So these are things which this app has developed, and it's more robust now because it's had those development. But the separate thing that it has on top of that as well, and this is where, to a certain extent, Honeycode has the automations, and I think their automations are a little bit limited. In behind the Google Sheets, you actually have, one of the tools is an actual script editor, so you can actually code. So although GlideApp is a no-code app, you can code. You can actually code on two levels. You can spreadsheet code by putting in a lot of various to do with array formulas and just things to do with spreadsheet formulas that you can actually do in those. And on top of that, in behind that again, you can actually put in JavaScript and actually do some quite sophisticated coding through there. Now, a lot of people may not want to do that, but it is nice to actually have that extra power of stuff. So inside that, when you're doing your coding as well, you've got a further level of coding through there, is that you can set triggers, and you can set triggers. I don't know if we had a trigger down here, and you can set a trigger when the item's opened in the head from a spreadsheet time driven from a calendar on an edit, so when there's a new line or something like that. So again, the Honeycode starting to do these sorts of things. So again, this is triggering, so this is automation that this one can do already. So there's all of these different steps of stuff. And again, with some of these, you can automate. When your sheets get filled up with a whole load of data or your information comes in, you can strip it out. Now, in this particular one, this is a reservation app, and I'm linking into Google Calendars and actually being able to actually add information to a calendar to actually do a booking through there. So it's using a whole load of different ones. So this is why I'm very, very excited about Honeycode. It's in its infancy. The fact that you've got a copy and paste here at the moment from your tables to external, that's early stuff. You've already got the fact that you can actually import from a CSV, so there is that connection coming through. But where I see the real power of this coming through is when they start linking to other AWS services. You link to an S3 bucket, you link to an EC2 server where you've actually got something running in there, you've got a database running, or you're actually running to a database or a straight database connection that you got in your AWS services, that you can do all of those connections. Until that happens, this is sitting in isolation. It's a fledgling. It has a potential for a massive amount of power, but at the moment it's a bit limited. Now again, inside the Google, the Glide apps, you can actually password protect this so that you can actually put a whitelist of the people who are allowed to use this, and you can share this right the way through. Another thing as well is I've done about 40 videos on Glide apps, and I've done the tutorials. I can actually post a copy of my spreadsheet, and I can post a copy of my app through there that other people can try and build something similar. So that's a really useful thing to do. And this is one thing which at the moment inside here, you can use a template, but you're only given these ones here. So how do people in the community share their templates that they have actually built up? So that's something that I actually haven't done any research in at this point in time. I'm still just trying to build a timesheet app that'll work, and once I've got that, I will actually do a video on the process of actually building that and doing the things. So it's a bit of a fledgling in the way of what it's actually offering, but with the AWS, all of the services that you get all the way around the place. In New Zealand, Azure, so Microsoft, and AWS, Amazon, are the two main business cloud services that people use. Don't tend to use the Google ones that much. Now the other one is that I've got a Glide app that's using the Google cloud services and things like that. So this is why I'm interested in building this one here, and in the actual test up of doing an ad, when I was actually adding things through here, it was taking up to 30 seconds to actually come through on this one here. So I'm interested, and this is on my PC, so I'm interested to see how that would work on my mobile app, just how fast this is to actually update and do those things as well. But I think there's this, as I'll really be following the trajectory of where Honeycode goes to, because I really think if it connects with other things that it actually has, and again, and also I think they need to think about the wizards of find. If you've got somebody who's totally unconfident, having those wizards and things through there is good. But you also want to be able to allow these apps to be able to have people that can actually put some programming code in there. Maybe it's only a minimal amount, but I think it's certainly extended the versatility and the popularity of Glide apps over a lot of the other ones. You know, you're not spending it. They've actually got quite a simple interface on the front here. They've got different skins that you can put on and stuff like that. But this interface is quite simple. And I find the actual building of this up at this point here quite irritating, getting in to make sure you're in the inner boxes and things like that at this point in time. Now, over time, once you get used to it, you most probably don't even think about it, and adjusting the width of it and things and tweaking. And it's one of those things, once you set it up, it's there to be used. And what I do like about this over that is that you've got the app that you can look at it straight on your PC, so you can test your app working all the time, which I think is really, really nice thing to do. And you can see your tabs, you can test your tabs and stuff, and you can pull it up on your mobile and stuff, and so that's good. Of the videos out there at the moment, and this is one that I just want to talk about on the timesheet one that I'm doing. I've got this pull down here, and this is filtering, and my idea is that I want this one to filter by the name. So whoever's logged in, when they do a line of data, it'll go in under them. And this lady here has done a really nice video from TechStack, and I'll put a link through, where she's using the filter. So she's got two tables, the completed and things. So it's a shopping list, and it's got a button, and then if you press that button means it's done, and that means it goes down. So it's basically just doing a lookup to another table. So it's relational, that spreadsheet relational to another table which just has yes, no. So if you press the done, then it says yes, and it moves it down to the other one. So it's quite a nice simple switch that it uses. Again, people use different methodologies for doing these. Within the spreadsheet stuff, the spreadsheet seems to be acting like a spreadsheet itself inside here. So it most probably, and I've yet to test out whether I can link across to other sheets to do some formulaic stuff to come down and pre-populate. Again, that's one of the things within the, which I think was really powerful, is this array formula, is that depending on how many rows you've got down here, it will take some data from here and do a calculation right the way through and bring it all the way through and do a whole load of other data all the way through there. That's so there's some really powerful stuff that you can do. So if that works, and again, I can only learn that by actually trying it out and doing it, that'll be interesting, because maybe you can actually do some back end doing your formula calculations through here rather than using this front end interface. But it's really only by doing that you'll actually learn whether that actually happens or not. So it's in its infancy. I do want to do a couple for things like timesheets. I think something like this is a brilliant thing, but you need to be able to automatically push that data across, and you can just message people and suddenly saying, put your timesheet in, do it. And if it isn't done by now, your information won't go in until the next timesheet cycle. So the notifications, information passing through, and everything good. A lot of things are set up quite nicely. Again. Images, being able to pull in images would be good. Having a map would be good, because again, another thing where you're doing a mobile app, why would you need a mobile app unless you're out and about? And one of the things when you're out and about is having navigations. The other thing with the in this as well is in templates. There's one here for inventory management, and this is where I sort of come back. I think I've just walloped it. If I create the word, and one of them is inventory management. If you've got heaps of rows on a spreadsheet, it really slows down your app. So what you want is some sort of automation between a database and your spread and your table or your sheet. So you're suddenly saying, if I'm going out and doing some inspections, I'm thinking facility management here, and I'm doing some inspections on 3 or 4 buildings, I can just download from the database the current information on those buildings only. So maybe that's 2,000 or 500 rows of data. I can go and do those inspections, and it then gets pushed up into the database again. So in itself, things like an inventory management app, that's fine if you've only got 1,500 bits of information. Simple survey, you've got the survey. Now what you do with the data, you need to move it to somewhere else to actually analyze that data. You need to go into something and start processing and doing some statistics on that data. So it might go to a spreadsheet where you're doing a whole load of calculations and then maybe graphing stuff out or doing some other things. Time off reporting and things like that, that may need to go into a payroll thing or something. There's the approval part of the things, but where else does that go to? So again, it's this extra linkage. At this point in time, it hasn't got it. But I think that's where it needs to be moving to be able to work in the whole structure of where the AWS actually environment is at the moment. So I hope that's been of interest to you. I'll do a further video soon on actually building one or two apps from my Glide apps. My Timesheet app seems to be quite a good one, and also a defects list and reporting defects within a team. So you've got the builders who are the person who goes around and identifies defects, and then they farm those out to the builder or to the plumber or to the whoever. But again, you can have that it's really a sharing app that you can actually identify information. Somebody else has to respond and actually confirm that those things are done on those sorts of things. So thank you very much for watching. If you found it useful, can you please give a thumbs up? And if you didn't, you don't need to. Thank you.